Canadian citizens and permanent residents who are fully vaccinated can come back to Canada without quarantining as of July 5th. But what about Canadian families with loved ones in other countries? Dr. David Poon is the founder of Faces of Advocacy. It's a grassroots organization dedicated to reuniting Canadian families kept apart by border restrictions during the pandemic. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So the news today, fully vaccinated Canadians not having to undergo hotel quarantine. What's your reaction to that?
There's a lot of cautious optimism on this. While the principle is good, now the question is, will it practically actually occur? And so there are a number of concerns that we have to watch out for.
What would those concerns be?
Well, when it comes to what was announced today, there's also a lot that wasn't announced. For example, right now, according to the orders in council, a foreign national arriving into Canada must stay in Canada for 15 days at minimum. So this made a lot of sense when there were a 2-week minimum quarantine for foreign nationals coming into Canada, as well as all Canadians at that time. But the thing is, for fully vaccinated people coming into Canada, they're no longer beholden to the 2-week quarantine time. So if that's the case, why is there no announcement to actually shorten the minimum stay or get rid of it entirely? For example, if you live in a cross-border community, it's very hard to take 2 weeks off to go see someone you're used to visiting over the weekend. If you're fully vaccinated and you are safe and respect public health protocols, there's no reason why you cannot be visiting for the weekend instead of having a 15 minimum day stay. There's also a challenge when it comes to the fact that minors, so let's say toddlers, for example, will still have to quarantine because they cannot get vaccinated. So for example, I have a colleague, she's a physician in Ontario, her partner is in Michigan, she's also a physician, and they have a less than 1-year-old kid. If they were to come into Canada, that kid, even though the parents are fully vaccinated, would have to undergo quarantine. A 1-year-old is not partying in the streets passing COVID around. And that's where we have some challenges with the implementation of what's occurring
No,
here.
but that 1-year-old could end up going into a daycare or a childcare space, and they could pass COVID around to an unvaccinated cohort. Look, I got 7-year-old and 4-year-old kids, so I get it. But, my 4-year-old goes into daycare every day, and if he was infected with the Delta variant, that would not be a good thing, right? So does that quarantine not make sense? Appreciating how tough that's going to be on mom and dad.
That makes complete sense when you're dealing with the spreading of COVID. However, there has to be some common sense understanding as well. That's why the Face of Advocacy have created the Family Reunification Border Transition Plan, where we talk about how children should also be under the same quarantine guidelines as the parents. Because on the topic of going to daycare, the challenge here is they could still follow public health guidelines, but not necessarily have to be confined entirely to their home. And these are the challenges that I wish we had an open discussion over, because the government has been more challenged in being transparent, fully forthcoming, and consistent on this topic.
I know there was a lot of anxiety amongst some groups to get greater clarity today on when fully vaccinated people will come in. And we sort of got an answer to some degree today from Bill Blair when he said, look, when 75% of the country is vaccinated, maybe we can start opening it up to international travelers, and we might see something like that in July and August. What's your sense of where the next steps seem to be in this, in terms of what little clarity we did get?
So one of the major issues with public health is building trust. And if you change goalposts, if you change what you say, it erodes the public trust. And I think a lot of us feel very disappointed or potentially even misled because we were told the major milestone to hit is 75% one dose, 20% two dose, and we hit that. However, right now we're saying now 75 has to be fully vaccinated, and that's a big challenge when it comes to vaccine not being available for a lot of Canadians. We talk about these rules as if they're going to be very, very helpful to a lot of people, and hopefully they will. But given that 20% are fully vaccinated, how many will actually get to benefit from this?
Well, 75-20 though correct me if I'm wrong, but 75-20 I always understood was a metric for a limited reopening, a gradual first step towards reopening. That's kind of what happened today, is it not?
Well, right now, today, nothing changed in terms of who's actually allowed
Right.
in the border. It's the same people. So if we're talking reopening, we ask who actually did it reopen for? Because the Canadians were already allowed into the country, and foreign national, immediate, and extended family members are also allowed in the country. So if that metric was meant to be hit for a reopening, nothing reopened. There were changes in quarantine requirements, and we're grateful for that, but there was nothing to do with an actual reopening of the border. So if in terms of what, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought. Finish your thought.
So, in terms of what are the next steps, because the only foreign nationals allowed into Canada are foreign national immediate and extended family members, that's what our transition plan is for that we submitted to the government. We will be piloting the safety, showing that immigration into Canada can be done safely by fully vaccinated foreign nationals who are Canadian family members. And then with that, hopefully, we'll be able to have a more full and very safe reopening for other groups as well.
I wonder what you say, though, to people who there are thousands of Canadians who are not able to travel to see their families inside Canada. You know, you can't go into Atlantic Canada without quarantine. You're not allowed into Newfoundland and Labrador yet without written permission from the government, sort of thing. I understand the focus on opening the international border, but what do you say to people who say, wait a minute now, let's get domestic travel going before we start letting people coming into the country from abroad?
As far as I can see, there are provinces already making those motions. Saskatchewan, Alberta, they are making those motions, and as well, Atlantic Canada is opening up as well. I think a better question at this point is to say, look at what we've declared as essential. For example, hockey teams. Hockey teams are allowed in, and at that point, they were actually allowed in before extended family members. So really, where are the priorities? I ask most people to please picture. Imagine you're in a worldwide pandemic. Who do you want beside you? And for the most part, it's your family. There are many of us still separated within the country, and we must be able to bring them together. But that doesn't mean that we should ignore the binational families who've worked so hard to build a love that spans across borders.
Okay, Dr. David Poon, thank you so much for your time and good luck.
Thank you very much.